As the age of information continues to impact our lives, we need to take a closer look at the responsibilities of the media, which greatly influences our decisions. Joining us are two experienced experts in the field of communications. Dr. Peter Fallon, Assistant Professor of Public Communications at Molloy College and Rockville Center, a 22-year veteran of the television industry who recently left NBC News after spending 17 years with the Today Show. And Dr. Margaret Cavanaugh, Associate Professor of Communication Arts at Molloy College, who is also actively involved in the Global Learning Program. Thank you so much for joining us on Long Island. It's a pleasure to have you both here. Peter, first of all, I have to ask you, after spending all that time on the Today Show, why did you leave?
Television is a wonderful medium. It's not as glamorous as everyone thinks. There's an awful lot of hard work. There's good people involved. But I was not happy, by and large, with what I was doing and what I saw going on in the world around me, and the influences that television has on the world. I kind of felt like it was my turn now to teach another generation of media practitioners, and not just to teach them to be practitioners, but to teach them to be responsible practitioners.
That's very important.
With an ethical perspective on their jobs.
What you're saying is very important, and we have such power in the media that we need to use it constructively. Wouldn't you say, Margaret?
I would say so, very definitely, and I think what we tried to do at Molloy, especially through the work that Peter is doing, enables students to view the media in a critical fashion and to make some informed decisions.
When they're looking at the media, what is the first thing that you would tell a student to look for?
I'm not sure there is one first thing, but I think I would direct them away from the obvious, and that would be not to be quite as concerned with the content as everyone seems to be these days. We're all concerned about negative content in all of our media, whether it's violence or sexual content. But it may be that that's not the worst thing about television and about video games. There's a report, a research study released just last week by Stanford University on reducing violent behavior, antisocial behavior amongst kids, and reducing the amount of television viewing and video game playing. And they found a positive correlation. The interesting thing that they also found is that violent behavior, antisocial behavior, was reduced without regard to the content of the programming. It could have been Little House on the Prairie or Starsky and Hutch or what have you. And this kind of reflects something that Marshall McLuhan has been saying since well, he's not saying it anymore, but he said it as long ago as 1965, is that television itself, the act of watching television, can bring on antisocial behavior.
I mean, I look at television and I see some wonderful things coming out of television, and then I do see some negative. Is it possible to have television be a wonderful tool in the house as well?
Oh, I think it's very possible. I think that would come largely from what you choose to watch, what you choose to have children watch, what you help them to choose as they get older when they're making their own decisions. And it certainly can be positive. Just look at some of the things that are on public television.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is valuable, too, is when you watch TV, you watch it as a family. Not everyone go into little isolated pockets and watch their own little thing. Even if it's a program that you don't agree with the content, you can have an open discussion about it if you're all sitting together, and you could say, well, this is a problem, that's not a problem, how do you feel about it? What do you think about that, Peter?
I think that's the way, if we're going to be a nation, a society, as we are, of habitual television viewers, and I think it's better to make television a tool of choice rather than of habit, to choose a program. But if we are going to be a society of habitual television viewers, we ought to be doing it together, and we ought to be talking about it. And I don't think that we do enough of that.
There's so much materialism that is thrown into their world through maybe CDs or television or the computer, the internet. It's all around them, the technological advances that interact with their world, and they're heavily influenced. And a lot of kids think that everything that they want is now a need. They have to have this materialism. And I know that the Holy Father has spoke extensively on this. This has been an ongoing concern of his.
Yes, it has. And I wish I had an answer for him right now. The television seems to be, and again I'm kind of dipping into some theory here, it seems to be, by its very nature, a medium more suited towards the senses than to the intellect. And when we focus, when we grow up in a culture which focuses on the senses, we tend to want to gratify ourselves sensually. Mm-hmm. And that's where materialism comes in. 100 years ago, a book culture, when we were truly a universally literate culture, we didn't have this same sort of materialism. It's not that materialism didn't exist, but it didn't exist as a primary cultural modality.
And part of that is because of some of the facts that we're going to bring up right now, the interesting facts that are impacting our lives. Let's take a look at the first one. 98% of all households have at least one television. 84% of U.S. households have at least one VCR. The average American 1-year-old watches television 7 hours, 12 minutes each day. That's incredible. The average American teenager watches television 20 hours and 20 minutes each week. The average American child sees some 360,000 television commercials before graduating high school. The average American youth watches television 1,154 hours per day, and 96% of U.S. households have at least one telephone. Are you concerned about what we're seeing in the world today?
Most definitely, but I think through education, and again, this is something that we're constantly trying to do, we try to encourage students and ourselves, because we're not immune to this either, to be intelligent, ethical consumers of what is around us.
So they can make responsible, educated
Very
decisions.
Definitely.
Peter, some of the students that come into the class, what is your impression of them when they first enter, and how are you able to get them to see the world differently?
What I try to do is not to change them at heart, because they don't need that. I try to change the way they see. I try to get them to question what seems obvious to them.
What I'm thinking is that when someone enters the classroom and they've been subjected to this on a daily basis, you know, this new age has grown up with video games, there's violence in that, music, this can be violence in that, television has become more violent, and so has the movies, and it's become almost accepted. So I'm wondering if when they walk in, it's harder for them to realize that they've almost been brainwashed to accept this.
I'm not so sure that it's impossible or harder for them to realize it. I have to agree with Peter. The students that we encounter are very thought-filled people. Do they need guidance? Definitely. Do we all need guidance? Definitely. I don't want to minimize the impact that the media have had on young people and on the rest of us, but they are more astute than we often give them credit for. They are capable of recognizing violence, and hopefully some of the things that we do help them to see further into this and make better decisions.
What are their feelings towards the media?
That's an interesting question, Peter. If I could go a little bit back towards your last question, there's kind of a before and an after I've found in my classes. Before they come into some of my critical classes, their attitude towards the media is that it's just the most wonderful thing in the world. It's the way the world ought to be. You know, oh, we really learned things. And by the end of the class, they're questioning a lot more. Well, you know, we really have missed things by watching television. We've missed a lot of experiences. We've missed a lot of reality. You know, there's a whole world out there, and there are other technologies out there that bring us information. I feel like I've succeeded in my classes when I encounter a former student who's telling me about all the great books that he's read or she's read in the last few months, either on their own or as part of another college curriculum. And we really stop talking about television.
That's wonderful. So you actually have a break and release. They can find joy in other things other than television. This has been an interesting discussion. We'll have to have you back and continue on with more, and I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Long Island.